All right, day 11 of 49ers training camp in the books. They're going to have a day off on Wednesday, then get back at it on Thursday with that joint practice that everybody's looking forward to. 49ers going up against the Denver Broncos. So we'll have a lot more on that later. But let's just kind of recap what happened on the 49ers practice field on this day. Let's start with what happened off the field before practice even began. 49ers make another roster move. We saw this one coming based on where they are with the shortage of receivers and just this ever-changing roster that the 49ers have. And on this day, they brought back Equanimous St. Brown, veteran wide receiver, and they released Andy Isabella, a slot receiver who appeared to have some sort of leg injury on Monday during practice. Well, it's interesting when the official transaction report from the NFL comes out. Of course, Andy Isabella is listed as released, but there's a note there that displays that there was a failure to disclose a physical condition. So don't know all of the aspects of that, but certainly what it suggests is that Andy Isabella came to the 49ers with something that they didn't know about, that the 49ers didn't know about. And then after just a few days of practice, he is sidelined. So Equanimous St. Brown takes his spot. Now, all those roster moves that the 49ers made on Monday, there were two of the players that they waived who ended up getting claimed by other teams. Cornerback Trey Avery from the Patriots and tight end Mason Pline was picked up by the Saints. So notable, I guess, is that quarterback Tanner Mordecai and wide receiver Isaiah Nayor were not claimed. So Nayor is kind of interesting because when the 49ers signed him as an undrafted rookie, the contract called for him to make $234,000 fully guaranteed on that contract based on his salary. So generally when a team signs a player to a contract like that, they're expecting him to be on the practice squad at the very least. But 49ers, he made a really good play in that practice last week that I talked a lot about, but wasn't showing up. And clearly the team, knows what they're asking of their players. And Isaiah Nayor, although healthy, gets waived. So those were the transactions. Now let's get to what happened on the field. And once again, it's turning into the Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall show. Pearsall, another big day at practice, catching 4 passes very early on. In fact, Purdy's first 4 completions were all to Pearsall, catching them at basically every level of the 49ers defense, including he did catch one over the middle. Got a nice little thump from a linebacker, Fred Warner. So Ricky Pearsall, again, very little negative to say. In fact, nothing negative to say about him, as I think he is very clearly turning into the most trusted wide receiver that Brock Purdy has. Throwing a lot of passes his way. He's coming down with a lot of passes. So 5 receptions for Pearsall on this day. Of course, George Kittle is the team's top receiver, and that continued to be something. Although Diamador Lenore, cornerback, returns to action after missing a few days with some sort of hip irritation. Lenore made his presence felt early on, breaking up a pass. Really nice play at the right sideline. That pass was intended, of course, for Kittle. Kittle didn't have a prolific day catching the ball, but he did end practice. His last reception, Purdy's last throw, was a touchdown in the back left corner of the end zone on a red zone drill. Also wanted to note Jordan Watkins, the draft pick from Ole Miss. He continues to have some really good showings on the practice field. Seen here running routes. You can see how he sinks his hips, how well he moves, the change of direction and all that. And it is translating to the practice field. Jordan Watkins with 4 catches on this day, all from Mac Jones, by the way. And speaking of Mac Jones, really putting together a solid training camp as the 49ers backup quarterback. Mac Jones, by my count, completed his first 14 passes on the day, and his only incompletion came on his last pass attempt. Now, let's not get maybe too carried away with the 14 consecutive pass completions, because sometimes that's not necessarily what the coaching staff wants. If he's checking the ball down when there was something open, intermediate, or deeper down the field that should have been his read, sometimes in the eyes of the coaches, a pass completion of that nature is worse than a completion could be worse than an incompletion, because he's not making the right reads. Now, I'm not saying that was the case, but it really looks like Mac Jones is coming along. He's being decisive, getting the ball out of his hands quickly. So I would say quite clearly, the eyes tell you a good day for Mac Jones, as he continues to really show that he has the ability to be a very good backup quarterback in this system. At NBCSportsBayArea.com, I wrote my notes on what happened in practice, and I led with this. Christian McCaffrey looks very good. You see him, doing those the ball handling drills, the stuff running, on air, catching passes out of the backfield. He looks close to that 2023 form. Certainly looks a lot better than he did at any point last season. So Christian McCaffrey, 49ers are certainly happy with him. They're watching his reps. They're maintaining the system of just making sure he doesn't get overworked at this point in training camp. But one play that stood out, actually a couple plays that stood out, McCaffrey coming out of the backfield, running a deep pass route. Brock Purdy was the quarterback, and he couldn't complete that pass to McCaffrey because the linebacker was in really good coverage on the play, tight coverage. So, of course, you would think, probably, as I would, if given that kind of information, that the linebacker was Fred Warner. No, it was D. Winters. And D. Winters, to me, although Nick Martin is getting better, he is making strides, he's making some plays out there, it does look like D. Winters is really in solid footing as far as winning that weak side linebacker position. And his ability to cover McCaffrey down the field is something that really stood out in practice on Tuesday. In fact, defensive coordinator Robert Saleh was asked about that. In speaking of D. Winters, he said his coverage ability is as good as anybody. You trust him in those situations. And in the situation that Saleh was talking about was specifically a linebacker trying to cover McCaffrey out of the backfield. So D. Winters, very strong training camp. He was, kind of in over his head a little bit as a rookie. Last year made some strides, but maybe it didn't translate necessarily to the games. This year, he has taken another step. So very much put himself in position to be the team starter at linebacker. Brock Purdy was intercepted once on the day. Richie Grant picked him off. Another really impressive day for Upton Stout. I mean, I can't stress enough just how well he's looked on the practice field, how he's turning heads, opening eyes, making both coaches and players kind of smile when they talk about him. He looks like a find, and he got in there. He broke up a pass intended for McCaffrey, by the way, early in practice. Also, in those one-on-one drills, there are some spirited competition that he's having a lot of times against Russell Gage. But on this day, he was going up against Pearsall a couple of times, and Pearsall has been catching everything in sight. There were 2 incomplete passes with Upton Stout in coverage. Jake Moody, the kicker, talked a lot about him before practice. So on his first day of being on the field, kicking in team drills as the only kicker in camp, by and large, a good day, a very consistent day. Looked like right down the middle on his kicks from 33, 35, 37, 44, and 46 yards. Then they moved back to a 55-yarder, and it, again, was right down the middle. The only problem, came up a little bit short, hit the crossbar was not good. Jordan James, a running back at practice for the 49ers, took part in 11-on-11, had a few reps there. So that's good news after Kyle Shanahan seemed kind of ominous last week, saying that he's going to be reevaluated later with his knee issues. But Jordan James, a rookie from Oregon, looks to be in good shape. And the 49ers need him with Isaac Grindo out for several weeks, at least a couple of weeks with the shoulder injury. Get more into the injuries a little bit later. Kalia Davis continues to look good. He had some good one-on-one reps. Also looked like maybe on a stunt that he beat Colton McKivitz for a sack during team drills. Nick Bosa. See Nick Bosa before practice. Kyle Shanahan said the day earlier that Bosa was being held out for rest, but on this day, it didn't look like just rest. However, no reason for alarm, I don't think, because if you see him doing those pass rush drills before practice, looks like he's going darn near full speed, very up-tempo pass rush drills. So that leads you to believe that nothing serious in nature or even close to being serious in nature is bothering Bosa. So we'll see if he's out there. Probably expect him to be out there Thursday against the Broncos. A couple notes on the 49ers' top 2 draft picks. Mykel Williams and Alfred Collins. I'd say the first couple of weeks of training camp been up and down, which is kind of what you would expect from rookies playing that position on the defensive line. Certainly CJ West has been getting a lot of attention because of how well he looked in those one-on-one pass rush drills early on. Maybe hasn't been as impressive since that day one, but Robert Saleh singled out Mykel Williams and Alfred Collins for 2 different reasons, because of certain disciplines that they're improving at noticeably in the eyes of Robert Saleh. For Mykel Williams, it's as a nickel pass rusher. Setting the edge in the run game is his forte, but Saleh has really been impressed with the strides he's made once he's moved inside and is rushing the passer. So working on those pass rush moves, Mykel Williams seems to be kind of figuring it out and making those strides. Alfred Collins, not so much as a pass rusher. I really don't see him helping the 49ers out in that area. You look for him to be more of a base down defensive tackle, a guy who can help the 49ers improve their run defense from a year ago. And that's where he seems to be doing pretty well. And he is showing a lot of improvement in that area, just kind of anchoring down middle of the defensive line and being a presence in the run game. Braden Willis, 49ers tight end. Talked about Mason Pline being claimed off waivers. He's no longer on the team. So there remains a good competition for the 49ers for that third and potentially fourth tight end positions. Braden Willis is putting himself in a position to succeed. He had 3 pass receptions on this day, probably in competition for playing time and a spot on the depth chart against Jake Tonges. Also, Luke Farrell had a drop in 11-on-11, but you know what? Luke Farrell's not here for his pass catching. 4 years in the NFL with the Jaguars, no touchdown receptions. 49ers think that there is something there that they can kind of tap into, but make no mistake, Luke Farrell is on the team. They signed him as a free agent because of his ability to block both in the run game and in pass protection. All right. I promise you some injury updates. Here we go. Gorindo out for a couple of weeks with the shoulder. Kyle Juszczyk, it's his right leg, his right Achilles was stepped on. He seems to be doing okay. He was on the practice field kind of as a coach, with the quarterbacks and Kyle Shanahan. So Kyle Juszczyk, I'm not sure if he'll be able to return to action quite yet. Juwan Jennings with the calf injury. I know there's a lot of chatter about, is this a hold-in? Now, Kyle Shanahan kind of sent mixed messages the other day, and I wrote about this at NBCSportsBayArea.com. When Shanahan was asked whether Jennings' absence from practice is physical or business related, he said you'd have to ask Jennings. Well, Jennings, as all 49ers injured players isn't available to talk to the media. But What Shanahan did say is that the calf injury shows. And when he says that the calf injury shows, that means that any imaging they've done on the calf signifies that there is an injury. So I'm a little bit on the fence of what to make of that. But if the MRI shows something, then the 49ers are being wise for him not practicing, and Juwan Jennings is being wise to not practice. As far as the contract situation goes, I've reached out to both sides. 49ers aren't commenting on Jennings' contract situation. Jennings' side isn't commenting on his contract situation. So it seems to me like they're working behind the scenes, good faith, to try to get something done that works for both sides. Jacob Cowing remains out for at least another week, as does Renardo Green, the cornerback, both of those hamstring injuries. Kevin Givens is going to be out for a while with a pectoral, looking for an in-season return from him. So look for him to potentially be placed on IR whenever it's time for those cuts to the 53-man roster. Evan Anderson out for maybe a week with a bruised knee. Sam Okwanu out for maybe a couple of weeks with a groin injury. And then Jair Brown, who missed time in the offseason program after getting his ankle scoped, that's kind of flared up on him. So that remains, you will see probably a day-to-day basis with him. One other note from the NFL, the league today announced that Jordan Addison, wide receiver from the Vikings, has been suspended for the first 3 games of the season for a violation of the policy on substances of abuse. To me, it's a very similar situation to what is in front of Demarcus Robinson. Addison was arrested in Southern California back in, I believe it was July of 2024. So a year ago, and just recently, he pleaded down to a lesser offense, and he'll serve 12 months of probation. But he was initially arrested on a DUI charge. And so Addison suspended for 3 games. And I think the smart money is probably on Demarcus Robinson eventually, whenever the league has its say, probably similar, a 3-game suspension. So 49ers have some issues at wide receiver, some openings for guys to step up. And again today, Ricky Pearsall looked like that guy. Now it's a matter of, when is Jennings coming back? Ayuk probably will start the season on the PUP list. Russell Gage looks good. Jordan Watkins looks good. So I think we'll see a lot more. We'll probably be able to tell a lot more about this 49ers team, where it stands right now with this team, both offensively and defensively, when the Broncos come to town on Thursday. So that's the quick practice number 11 wrap up. Thanks for watching, and that is it for now.